Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
The Philadelphia Phillies faithful have been on an emotional roller coaster this offseason, watching their front office make calculated moves while secretly hoping for that one blockbuster transaction that changes everything. Kyle Schwarber is back in the fold. Adolis Garcia has been brought into the outfield mix, and the bullpen has received some much-needed reinforcements. But the elephant in the room, the question that keeps Phillies fans up at night scrolling through social media and refreshing their news feeds, remains unanswered. What happens with JT Realmuto? The beloved catcher, the heart and soul of this team for years, sits in contract limbo as both sides apparently remain far apart on the terms of a potential deal. But what if there was another way? What if the Phillies could pivot from this stalemate and make a move so audacious, so unexpected, that it would immediately vault them into the conversation as legitimate threats to dethrone the Los Angeles Dodgers? What if Dave Dombrowski, the man who has been criticized for being too conservative lately, could pull off a masterstroke that would have the entire baseball world buzzing? This isn't just wishful thinking or off-season fever dream material. This is a genuine blueprint for how the Phillies could transform their roster and become one of the most dangerous teams in baseball heading into the new season. The plan is bold, requiring multiple moving parts to fall into place like dominoes. It demands courage from the front office and a willingness to make uncomfortable decisions. It means saying goodbye to a franchise icon and taking a calculated risk on youth and elite talent. But if executed properly, this strategy could give the Phillies an infield that rivals any in baseball, maintain their stellar pitching staff, and create a lineup so deep and dangerous that opposing managers would lose sleep trying to game plan against it. Here's the vision that could change everything for Philadelphia baseball. Let JT Realmuto walk away in free agency. Yes, you read that correctly. The five-time All-Star catcher who has been the backbone of this team would not return. Trade Alec Bohm while his value remains respectable after an improved defensive season. Sign one of the most electric young players in baseball, Bichette, and move Bryce back to his natural position at third base where he began his professional career. Pair this with acquiring a cost-effective catcher who can handle the defensive responsibilities without breaking the bank. Suddenly, the Phillies have reallocated resources, upgraded their middle infield, and position themselves to compete at the highest level for years to come. Before dismissing this as pure fantasy, consider the financial mathematics that make this possible. If JT Realmuto is seeking something in the neighborhood of $13 to $15 million per year, and the Phillies have earmarked that money for his return, letting him walk immediately frees up that capital. Alec Bohm is projected to earn approximately $10.5 million through arbitration this season. Trading him adds another significant chunk of payroll flexibility. Combined, you're looking at roughly $23 to $25 million in annual payroll space. That's precisely the range where Bichette's contract would land on a long-term deal, likely requiring a commitment of 6 to 8 years to secure his services, but absolutely doable given his age and elite production. Bichette represents everything the Phillies need in their current competitive window. At just 27 years old, he's entering the prime years of his career with an impressive track record that speaks for itself. His rookie season in 2019 announced his arrival on the big stage with a stunning .311 batting average and a .930 OPS, numbers that immediately established him as one of baseball's rising stars. The OPS Plus figures tell the story of consistent excellence, posting marks of 144, 127, 121, 128, and 122 across his first 5 seasons. Yes, the 2024 campaign was challenging, limited to just 81 games due to injuries while playing for a struggling Blue Jays team. But anyone analyzing his career objectively can identify that as an outlier rather than the beginning of a decline. This past season showed the real Bichette, the player who terrorizes pitching staffs and produces at an elite level. Across 139 games, he accumulated 181 hits, including 44 doubles that consistently moved runners into scoring position. He drove in 94 runs while launching 18 home runs, all while maintaining a .311 batting average with a .357 on-base percentage and a .483 slugging percentage. The .840 OPS and .129 OPS plus demonstrate his offensive prowess beyond simple counting stats. Over his 7-year career, he has accumulated 21 wins above replacement, averaging approximately 3 WAR per season, the mark of a consistently above-average player who impacts winning. His career .806 OPS shows sustained excellence, and his 190 doubles accumulated in just 7 seasons reveal his ability to hit for extra bases and drive offense. The defensive question naturally arises when discussing Bichette joining the Phillies. He has primarily played shortstop throughout his career, the same position currently occupied by Trea, who just completed an excellent defensive season and shows no signs of needing to move off the position. This is where the beauty of this plan reveals itself through positional flexibility. Bichette has reportedly begun telling teams he would be open to moving to second base, a transition that would be relatively seamless given his athleticism and baseball IQ. The Blue Jays actually deployed him at second base during portions of the World Series run after his injury return because they had established other players in their positions during his absence, proving he can handle the keystone with competence. This positional shift creates a domino effect that improves the entire infield defense. Bryce Stott, who has been spectacular at second base for the Phillies, actually began his professional career playing third base. He possesses the defensive skills and instincts to excel anywhere on the infield, and while he may not be quite as elite at third as he is at second, the drop-off would be minimal. Stott's baseball intelligence, quick reactions, and soft hands would immediately make him a superior defensive third baseman compared to Alec Bohm, who, despite making legitimate strides last season, remains a below-average defender at the hot corner. Stott's ability to make the routine play consistently and his superior range would stabilize that position while allowing Bichette to man second base, Turner to stay at short where he thrives, and Bryce Harper to continue his renaissance at first base. The catching situation requires addressing head-on because this is where skeptics will focus their criticism. Losing JT Realmuto absolutely represents a downgrade defensively. There's no sugarcoating that reality. Realmuto remains one of baseball's premier backstops, even if he's not quite the defensive juggernaut he was 5 years ago. His blocking has shown some decline, occasional wild pitches and passed balls creeping into his game with slightly more frequency. But that legendary arm remains intact, still capable of gunning down base runners attempting to take liberties on the base paths. That cannon of a throwing arm remains one of his most valuable assets, erasing running games and keeping opposing offenses from creating extra opportunities. However, the uncomfortable truth that the Phillies front office must confront is that JT Realmuto is 35 years old. The catcher position is notoriously punishing on the body, grinding down even the most durable players over time. The wear and tear accumulates, the recovery between games takes longer, and the inevitable decline becomes steeper. If Realmuto is seeking a 3 or 4 year contract at substantial annual value, the Phillies must ask themselves difficult questions about how much production they can realistically expect in years 3 and 4 of that deal. Will he still be catching 100-plus games at age 37 or 38? Will that arm remain strong? Will his offensive production hold steady or begin to fade? These aren't questions asked with disrespect, but rather with the cold calculation that smart front offices must employ when making long-term commitments to aging players. The catching market offers several viable alternatives that wouldn't require massive financial investment. Victor Caratini has emerged as the most discussed name among Phillies fans as a potential Realmuto replacement. He brings solid defensive credentials, game-calling ability, and enough offensive production to avoid being a black hole in the lineup. His experience catching playoff-caliber teams makes him an attractive option who could step in without overwhelming the pitching staff with adjustment periods. Beyond Caratini, other names circulate as possibilities, players who could be acquired for reasonable contracts in the $3 to $4 million annual range, or even better, young catchers available via trade who possess major league experience and upside. The trade market might offer the most intriguing path forward behind the plate. Several organizations feature catching depth, where a young backstop with big league experience sits blocked by an established starter. These situations create opportunities for savvy front offices to acquire talent without surrendering premium prospects. The ideal target would be a catcher in his mid-20s who has shown he can handle major league pitching, provides adequate defense, and comes with multiple years of team control. Paired with Rafael Marchand as a backup who could play 2 games per week and provide rest days, the Phillies could create a catching tandem that, while not matching Realmuto's star power, provides sufficient production at a fraction of the cost. Trading Alec Bohm feels almost sacrilegious to suggest, given his journey with the organization and his improvement last season. He made legitimate defensive strides, cutting down on errors and showing better instincts at the hot corner. His offensive production provides value, and he's a homegrown player who resonates with the fan base. But baseball is a business, and sometimes good players need to be moved to make room for great players. Bohm's arbitration salary of approximately $10.5 million for the upcoming season represents significant payroll that could be reallocated toward an elite talent like Bichette. His defensive limitations, even with improvements, remain notable compared to other premium third basemen around the league. If moving him opens the door to acquiring a legitimate star while allowing Bryce and Stott to slide over to third, it becomes a move that makes the team better both immediately and long term. The projected Phillies infield under this plan would be absolutely elite, a murderer's row of talent that would terrorize opposing pitchers. Bryce Harper at first base, coming off another spectacular season and looking like he could play at an MVP level for several more years. Bichette at second base, a dynamic offensive force in his prime who impacts games with his bat and creates energy with his aggressive style of play. Trea at shortstop, the former batting champion who rediscovered his form and remains one of baseball's most dangerous offensive weapons when healthy and right. Bryce and Stott at third base, a young player still developing who has shown he can hit for average, get on base, and play stellar defense anywhere you put him. That's a core 4 infielders who could combine for double-digit WAR and provide both offensive production and defensive reliability. Yeah, the outfield situation also looks increasingly promising with the recent additions and young talent. Brandon Marsh brings defensive wizardry in center field along with surprising pop from the left side. Justin Crawford, one of the organization's top prospects, appears ready to contribute at the major league level and could force his way into playing time with his speed and contact skills. Adules Garcia provides another option who can play multiple outfield spots and offer lineup flexibility. This outfield group might not feature any superstars, but they offer depth, defense, and enough offensive production to complement the powerful infield and avoid becoming a liability. The pitching staff remains the foundation upon which championship hopes are built. Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola form one of baseball's premier 1-2 punches atop the rotation, both capable of dominating any lineup on any given night. Ranger Suarez provides quality innings as the third starter, while Christopher Sanchez emerged as a revelation and gives the Phillies depth that few rotations can match. The bullpen additions made this offseason address needs and provide Dave Dombrowski with options to navigate the late innings. If the offense receives the upgrade that Bichette would provide, this pitching staff wouldn't need to be perfect every night because they'd have more run support and a lineup that could win games in multiple ways. The comparison to the Los Angeles Dodgers feels inevitable because they remain the standard bearer in the National League. Their financial might, their player development system, their ability to reload rather than rebuild makes them perpetual contenders who won't surrender their throne easily. But the Phillies under this proposed plan would have the pieces to compete directly with Los Angeles and potentially even surpass them. A lineup featuring Harper, Bichette, Turner, and Stott, supported by quality depth throughout the roster, could match up offensively with anyone. The starting pitching certainly compares favorably. The question becomes whether the Phillies are willing to be bold enough to execute this vision. Dave Dombrowski has built his Hall of Fame career on making big moves, bringing star players to his organizations, and pushing chips to the center of the table when championship windows open. His track record with the Tigers, Red Sox, and now Phillies includes multiple pennants and championships, but recently some within the fan base have questioned whether he's lost that aggressive edge, whether he's become too conservative in his approach, too willing to run back similar rosters rather than making the difficult decisions necessary to take the next step. This offseason represents an opportunity to answer those critics emphatically by executing a plan that would shock the baseball world. The obstacles to this plan are real and shouldn't be dismissed as insignificant. The Phillies currently sit over the luxury tax threshold, and ownership has shown reluctance to balloon the payroll without restraint. Committing to Bichette on a long-term deal would require going years and dollars that might make ownership uncomfortable, even if the money theoretically exists, by letting Realmuto walk and trading Bohm. There's also the risk factor inherent in any long-term contract, the possibility that Bichette doesn't age well or suffers injuries that limit his effectiveness over the life of the deal. The Blue Jays would need to be willing to trade their franchise shortstop if that route were explored rather than signing him in free agency, which seems increasingly likely given their rebuilding direction. But risk-averse front offices don't win championships. Playing it safe, running back similar rosters year after year while hoping for different results is a recipe for mediocrity and disappointment. The Phillies have a championship caliber core in place right now, today. Bryce Harper isn't getting younger. Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola won't pitch at this level forever. The window is open, but windows don't stay open indefinitely. Teams that win championships are the ones willing to make bold moves, to take calculated risks, to recognize when the moment demands aggression rather than caution. Imagine this Phillies team taking the field in April with Bichette in the lineup card, with Bryce and Stott having a full spring to work at third base, with a retooled catching situation that might not be quite as good as Realmuto, but provides adequate production at massive payroll savings. The offense would be explosive, capable of hanging runs on any pitching staff. The defense would be improved up the middle where games are won and lost. The pitching staff remains elite. The depth throughout the roster provides protection against injuries and allows for matchup advantages. That's a team that could win 100 games. That's a team that could make a deep playoff run. That's a team that could bring a championship parade back to Broad Street. The social media reaction to this plan would be predictably divided. Some fans would immediately embrace the vision, excited by the prospect of adding an elite young talent like Bichette and energized by the boldness of the moves. Others would be horrified at the thought of letting JT Realmuto walk, viewing it as disrespectful to a beloved player who has given so much to the organization. Still others would question whether Bichette is worth the investment or whether the defensive downgrade at catcher would be too significant to overcome. All of these reactions would be valid, reflecting the complexity and risk inherent in any significant roster overhaul. But sports are about competing for championships, not maintaining comfortable familiarity. The goal isn't to run back the same team year after year while hoping that this time will be different. The goal is to constantly evaluate the roster, identify weaknesses, upgrade where possible, and position the team for sustained excellence. If the front office determines that JT Realmuto at age 35 on a multi-year deal represents declining value, then moving on from him isn't disrespectful but rather smart business. If Alec Bohm's trade value can net useful pieces, while his roster spot can be filled by moving Bryce and Stott, then making that trade improves the team. If Bichette represents an opportunity to add an elite bat in his prime years, then pursuing him aggressively makes perfect sense. The financial restructuring that this plan enables can't be overstated. By reallocating the money that would have gone to Realmuto and Bohm toward Bichette, while filling in around the edges with cost-effective solutions, the Phillies maintain payroll flexibility while upgrading the roster. They avoid being locked into declining production from an aging catcher, while instead betting on prime years from a 27-year-old star. They improve their infield defense while maintaining offensive firepower. They create lineup depth that allows them to weather injuries or slumps without the season derailing. These aren't minor considerations, but rather fundamental roster construction principles that separate contenders from pretenders. The odds of this exact plan unfolding are admittedly slim. Front offices rarely execute multi-part transactions that require everything to fall into place perfectly. Dave Dombrowski might decide that retaining Realmuto matters more than the financial flexibility. The Blue Jays might not be willing to trade Bichette or might demand a prospect haul that the Phillies aren't willing to surrender. Bichette himself might prefer to sign elsewhere, choosing a different market or organization. The catching market might not offer suitable replacements at the price points needed to make the math work. Any number of obstacles could derail this vision and force alternative approaches. But the exercise of thinking boldly, of exploring every avenue to improve the roster, remains valuable even if this specific plan doesn't materialize. It demonstrates that paths exist to upgrade the team if the front office possesses the courage to pursue them. It shows that the Phillies aren't trapped in their current construction, that alternatives exist if they're willing to be creative and aggressive. It challenges the assumption that running back essentially the same roster represents the only or best option. Sometimes the path to championship contention requires zigging when everyone expects you to zag, making the move that surprises people precisely because it's bold and unexpected. The coming weeks will reveal whether Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies front office are prepared to be that bold, to execute a plan that would make them immediate World Series favorites and position them for sustained success. The pieces are on the board. The money can be made to work. The talent is available. The only question is whether the organization has the vision and courage to pursue it. Phillies fans deserve a team that competes fearlessly for championships, that makes the moves necessary to win rather than settling for comfortable mediocrity. This plan represents exactly that type of fearless ambition. As we head into the holiday season with family and loved ones, Phillies fans will be checking their phones obsessively, hoping for breaking news that changes everything. They'll be refreshing Twitter, reading every rumor, analyzing every report, searching for any hint that their team is about to make a splash. The hot stove season creates this unique tension where hope and anxiety intertwine, where every day could bring the transaction that alters the franchise's trajectory. Whether this specific plan comes to fruition or something entirely different emerges, one thing remains certain. The Phillies have options, opportunities, and the pieces to compete with anyone if they're willing to be aggressive. So smash that like button if you're ready to see the Phillies make a bold move this offseason. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any breaking news as this saga unfolds. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on this plan. Would you let JT Realmuto walk? Would you trade Alec Bohm? Is Bichette worth the investment? Let's discuss this in the comments and keep the conversation going. Share this video with your fellow Phillies fans who need to hear about this potential roster transformation. The offseason is far from over, and anything can happen. This is your channel for the latest Phillies analysis, rumors, and bold takes that you won't find anywhere else.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.